Hello everyone, and you are again hearing me from the future and seeing me from the past. Uh, this first clip is me laying down the final booster rails. At this point I'd pretty much, I'd had to have chased a cart like 5 or 6 times, but this is me just laying down the last ones. I was going from spawn to the station. So we should, in a few moments, see me lay down the final piece of booster track for this whole line. I didn't have many troubles doing this. It was mostly just going back and forth crafting more things. Oh, and there we go. There's the last booster rail. Yeah, so yeah, it was mostly just me going back and forth, getting more materials and crafting more things. I think I've probably cleared out every single piece of iron ore within a 5-block row, within a 5 kilo chunk radius of Carpenter Station by now. But, yeah, we're just gonna run along, or try to, because I always have issues with that during filming. Still a bit sick. This illness seems to be kind of trolling me, in that every single time I think I'm getting better, it decides to start wailing on me. So first couple of days I had a really sore throat, second couple of days I had a really bad cough. Now I'm finding my throat is largely okay, but I'm sneezing a lot, like my nose is killing me. Sniffle, sniffle. But anyways, here we are. And we'll switch to the next clip where we're going to give this thing a test drive. So here we are with the inaugural first attempt at riding this rail. I just got the most simplistic of setups I could possibly have, and of course that failed. Balls. But after chasing the cart, as I said, back to spawn, here we are, heading as intended from spawn locations to Carpenter Station. If I just bring up the HUD there, yep, there we go. We can see just how quickly I'm traveling and how far I'm going. But in other news, I got some fan art related to the Mado Lying Summer donation drive. So allow me to just plonk that onto the screen here. This is by Kagome, who you may know from doing Nipdy's Dragon on Too Much Minecraft. Attention to detail in that image is mildly disturbing, but it's a great piece of art and I like it. I'm somewhat endeared to like it regardless of the contents, but it's nice nonetheless. So yeah, just a reminder, you can get a look at the whole donation drive as it presently stands by the link in the description. And Chippin actually was bought out recently, and it will actually be ceasing its service entirely from March 7th, which is a week after our donation drive ends. So if you want to get your donations in, there isn't going to be a second Chippin, and there isn't really much room for it to be extended either. But this is just me building up a bit more of a respectable arrival area. So naturally I have to use the scaffolds and the construction foam, because apparently that's pretty much what Carpenter Station is made out of entirely. Although there's some weird stuff that happens to this construction foam over the course of this episode. With that block I just placed in particular, in fact. But the idea for this rail is, rather than it just being a single minecart travelling along, and because it's one way, I can do this rather cheaply. Always the hazard of construction foam. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but it did. But yeah, instead of just being like a single minecart or anything, we're going to send a train. We're going to get deep into railcraft. So we're going to have a cart come along, we're going to eject any players, and we're going to have an item unloader, which will take anything out of a storage cart and plonk it into a convenient chest right next to where the players are ejected. So people can people can shove things into a storage cart at spawn and just like push a button, the train will go off and they'll deliver things to Carpenter Station and it'll come back. So they don't actually have to come to Carpenter Station to deliver anything, which is great. Because it's a bit of a trip, as we know. But of course, if they do want to come to Carpenter Station, which they're perfectly welcome to, especially since I've installed buttons and stuff, so we can actually get into the place a lot easier. Because that was something that when Dragon Hat was live streaming, was Oh, yeah, we've built this up a bit more, and I'm just going to give it a demonstration here. That is a disembarking rail, which when triggered will eject the player.
User disconnected from your channel.
That's happening quite a bit. But will eject any occupants of a minecart. And this is a boarding track, which will hold things in place until it receives a redstone signal, and that's an item unloader beneath it. So here we are with a quick demonstration using a chest cart. Just stick some stuff in it. Yep. I always need to remember that, because if I'm in cheat mode, it actually gives me stuff. And let's just nudge it along. It'll wait until all of the stuff gets deposited, and then it will shoot off and around. So, yep, there it goes. Perfect. As you see, that one of those construction foams has turned back into a scaffold. I don't know how that's happened, but it has. And similarly, I can demonstrate... I've got this block of concrete is here purely so that it doesn't go shooting off down the track, which is now perfectly capable of doing with all of the boosters in place. So now let's see if I am wise enough to give this a check with just the... apparently I was doing some voicing here, but I didn't think to actually record it. Oh well. No, I don't know if I actually did do this, because I did not have a minecart. Oh no, there it is. Yes, but kind of helps to have some boarding... Well, that's the HES transition, which you need to go to and from high speed. Evidently, I'm not going to demonstrate the high speed, the disembarking track. Sorry about that, but it will be covered in a next part, which is that we are now going to hop over to my test world. Sniffle. And I will attempt to explain this. This was actually something that I did record with some audio, but apparently that balked. So here we are in my test world, and as you can see, I've laid out a couple of demonstrations, and I've also got the original model I was working with, which is needlessly massive, as I found out after reviewing everything. But let's take a look at things, shall we? He said, hoping his on-screen self decided to be compliant. Come on, shift it. There we go, thank you. So the idea was that I would have this, yep, there's a demonstration of just how I got the 5 blocks apart for the rail. It doesn't quite match the design I actually implemented, and that's a design very similar to what we have actually in place at the arrival station now. Little small, it's a little larger, and it uses a bit more complex circuitry than it needs to. But here's the original station design that I was putting together, the Carpenter rail line piece and everything. And this will demonstrate all the features that our starting place needs to have. So there's deliveries and haulage, where you will put things into your chest cart to have them sent off. There's the minecart, which will automatically fire off when someone sits in it, or when someone hits that button. So yep, there we hit it, and off they go, forms a train, and around it goes. So we'll just manage to see those come out, I believe, but if we look in here, we can see... I tried to make this as high contrast a block as I could, so people would have an absolute certainty as to what was happening. And of course, there's my inability to fly, because that's apparently lag caused, so I'm just going to give myself a jetpack to save myself some trouble. This is again something that's due entirely to my computer, so if you donate, this doesn't happen as much. And this is where I realized that there's actually, for some reason, when I was giving myself items, a few of the different items in Taggart today, when I was recording this, it wasn't actually giving me ones with any actual charge. But, well, there's Hollow Mode. Hey, hooray. So, what happens here? Well, things come in through this part over here, and if they have a player, if they're holding a player, or if they're an empty minecart, which is what you normally see in Minecraft, then it decouples them. That is a decoupler track. It breaks it off of a train. And then the first thing that goes through, which because of our system here is the occupied cart, or the empty cart, triggers that state cell, which triggers the switch there, the motor, which changes the direction that minecarts go when they go over that rail, so they go over into that hole. And if we then follow it through, we have another decoupler rail. This one's looking for storage carts, like the one that we shove our items into. And that is then doing the same thing, so that gets separated. Again, first thing past gets priority, so then everything else gets sent off into this next section here. which is again more complex than it needs to be. And this is basically train storage. This is storing all the parts of the train that we don't need around on rails whenever the thing's inactive. So that is, in this case, the work cart, which is a workbench in a minecart. So it's I thought that might be nice so people could do stuff whilst they're on the train because it's a long way. And the world anchor cart, which keeps the whole thing loaded, which is important because it's a long enough way that things unload and minecarts stop dead on the tracks, which is very bad when you have a high-speed rail because they can then explode. But we don't want the anchor cart actually in place when it's not inactive, when the station isn't in use, because then things will be unnecessarily loaded and that will cause lag. But here's a demonstration of another model I was trying to use. You can do a bunch of stuff. In this particular version I was trying to use a timer, so it just counts 2 every time that inbound detector gets, because you can apparently unload things out of the cart dispensers, but you can't. It's really irritatingly difficult to get it compact to go into a train dispenser where it needs to go. So I just use a transpose and triggered it as many times as I need to. As you can hear it counting over there. You don't hear that counting in SMP, but you do hear it in single player. So yeah, goes out one end, gets eaten up on the other, and into the train dispenser, as we saw. Very handy little device, very handy for storing trains when they don't need to be in use. So now we shall move on to the more important part of this whole thing, which is train building, which requires that we combine couplers and detectors and decouplers and all sorts. So I'll just give the button you can see on that nether brick a hit, and we will see this whole thing run around, and I'll be able to explain it a bit better. But over here, it's just me demonstrating that we have a train detector, which fires a redstone signal when a train of a certain size is over top of it, and that is a coupler rail, which is active whenever there's any cart on top of it, due to the detector beneath it, and then they all shuffle along to the next one and get joined up and get fired off, which is great if you want speedy. Originally I was using timers and stuff, and it was kind of difficult to get right. But, sorry, I'm just holding back a sneeze, really annoying. But anyways, yes, we have 2 stages because we need to connect the work cart and the anchor cart, which start out as a train by themselves, to the storage cart, and then attach that to the player or empty cart. So we hit the button, they all get joined together, you can see they're staying perfectly well, and then they get pulled apart again. This is just a free cart thing. Doesn't quite match what we have over there, but does work pretty well nonetheless, because we have these separators over here, just to make sure that everything stays and goes where it wants. Once we have all the carts in their own little place, we can send them wherever we want them, such as the display area for this storage cart. So here is the very minimalistic piece that I made later on. It's running off of... the cart storage is running off of a connection to the global clock that I set up for my test world, but because the station is unloaded in on the server whenever I'm over at spawn, I actually have to use a timer for that, as we'll see in a bit. But here we go. Yeah, it's a lot more compact. It's all doing the exact same stuff, and it should function exactly the same. So, cart runs over that detector, triggers the boarding track the storage cart is on, and then that triggers that detector, which fires off the train dispenser. So everything gets plugged together into a larger train, and then again along into another train, and then it gets fired off. All perfectly functional. And very, very compact, which is good because I can save on the iron that I've already lost quite a bit of. But yeah, there's always a bit of a timing issue. I don't specifically know what it was. You can solve that in this particular instance by having some booster rails to make sure that the empty cart or the player cart goes faster than the storage cart. But that's the one slight problem with Railcraft. But anyways. I suppose I could put in like a detector for an AND gate to make sure that the train cart, the storage train could only be ejected once there was an empty cart or something there. But that's getting larger and a bit needlessly complicated. But anyways, that is the improved minimalistic design, which will hopefully work now. Yep, there we go, perfect. Just around this loop thing, which is standing in for our gigantic railway, and we get ejected by the disembarking track there, as you saw, and everything's in its nice little place. Yeah, timing is one of the more annoying parts of Railcraft, but so as I say, this works, so we shall now hop back over to the server, and we'll try and put this thing together in a bit more meaningful way. Okay, so, welcome back. I'm just going to hop along here in the cart. This isn't how the station is meant to work. This is meant to be just a drop-off point, effectively. But I swapped out the
User in your
disembarking
channel timed
track.
out.
Someone's vanished again. Switched out the disembarking track for a boarding track, which allows me to just hop in here and get launched away, rather than be shoved out. So, as we speed along, it's been a day or two, because I've been just dead, more or less. I actually haven't checked this rail before I came back onto it. I don't know if someone's managed to get a creeper wander onto it. But I guess we'll see. We've got a bunch of chickens in the line, it would seem. Oh, and we just passed the halfway house that I've got set up there as a marker. Yeah, we are speeding along at a grand old speed. The minimap can barely keep up with it. And oh, balls. Well, I found where my missing cart went. I'm gonna fix that. That's annoying. But on the bright side, I have plenty of replacement, so... Oh, hello, zombie. You can't get me on this side. On the bright side, I can just hop back and fix that. That's the part of things, really. What we are going to be doing here, and of course it's midnight, so yay, is finishing up the departure station over here. Which requires that we have a few special tracks. But I shall walk you through exactly what they all do. So, boarding tracks, a disembarking track, which is probably the first one we'll put down here. That's just in case people do come around on the line, because as you saw, I can do that. So potentially someone else can figure it out. Boarding tracks we're using here and here, so that holds our that needs to turn around. Fortunately I have a crowbar on me. That's odd. It's behaving nuisancely. That's totally a word, I swear. That should be facing the other way. Oh, I know why, because this shouldn't be a boarding track. I'm getting confused. There we go, now it's pointing the right way. That just needs to be the one kind of rail that I apparently didn't bring with me. Normal. Of course. But over here, after the disembarking track, needs to be a boarding track, so that whenever someone jumps into this or pushes this button, a car will get shot off, and that's what we want. Again, here's where we get some more boarding tracks to hold things in place. A little bit of lag there. And we need some switch tracks, which are about as ornery as the boarding tracks. There we go. And around there. So now they all try and go that way, which is what we want to be seeing. And we need another switch track here. That's perfect. Another boarding track here. Perfect. Switch tracks all up in this, which are not going to cooperate, of course. A lot of Railcraft is just kind of fidgeting with things until they decide to work. There we go, that's fine. That's going to figure out what it's doing in a moment. I think. Reasonably certain. No? Yeah, I'm still a little bit under the weather, but oh well. I want to get this done. Why you know... legitimately, why you know work? Okay, now you work. Yay. Yeah. Of course, now I have to figure this out. Wasn't this annoying when I was making it in my test world? I tell you that much. apparently this thing doesn't like having that. There. Fixed. So, as we know, we're coming through here. Player cart gets attached here, comes through there, triggers that. Storage cart gets attached there, goes through there, triggers this. And everything works quite nicely. Which means we just have one more switch track to put in, and that is over here next to this power rail. And there's all manner of unpleasantness trying to find its way in here. But it won't, so we're all good on that note. There we are. Now to control the switch tracks we need switch motors. And they automatically associate with a rail that's with a switch rail that's right next to them. And they are triggered by redstone, which is why we have these state cells and these detectors and everything. We just need one more. There. Okay. Now, with the exception of that empty rail over there, this is almost completely functional. So we just hop down here. I need to connect this detector, which sends the chest cart off whenever something is trying to leave the station, such as whenever there's a player in the minecart or whenever someone pushes the button, and it's done that really annoying thing that does. This is why I like to put the rails in, but apparently not. Do I not have anything I can put there? No? Huh. That's irritating. Okay, well I'm going to quickly hop back, and I shall be back over here with the necessary accoutrement. I'll also see about fixing that rail on the way here. So, back in a moment. Okay, so that's all repaired. That's why we need a world anchor cart whenever the cart is coming back on its own, because otherwise it stops when the chunk unloads. And then accidents happen, because high-speed rails explode whenever there's nothing controlling them. Okay, so, got some... Oh, I don't want people in those there. I want some regular powered track. There. And let's get rid of this. And this. And there. And there. There. So we'll also get that. That's now also going to give us just a power speed boost as things go through, just to make sure the timing stays proper. And no, they're going to actually update. Just apparently the server's being a little bit on the laggy side of things today. So, train dispenser needs the work cart and the anchor cart. The chest cart location needs our chest cart, deliveries and haulage, and here needs our regular cart. Now, so, well, that and this is not powered as yet, nor is this over here for when you come back. But that is basically the whole thing functional. We just need to fix up this with a timer or something, but that will actually eat carts now, which is good. And everything else should be more or less functional. So, that is, I believe I shall pronounce, our rail line from Spawn to Carpenter Station open and functional, or at least it will be by the time anyone else logs on. So we can now play a significantly more active role in whatever happens around Spawn, which is nice. I have a feeling by the looks of it that we're going to have a lot to do. But that's it for today, so I shall catch you all next time, when hopefully I'm feeling significantly less like death. Catch you later, guys.